Two. Hey everybody, it's Angelo Caruso. I'm here with Jenny Stotts. How are you, Jenny?
Just fine, thank you.
Before we get going with this interview, and you're going to really enjoy this, uh, I want to tell you, if you're watching this video version of this on YouTube, if you subscribe to this YouTube channel, my YouTube channel, you'll be notified of new interviews like this with interesting people, and I think you'll be glad to be part of that. You can also listen to the audio version of this interview on my Talk to Me podcast. And if you do speaking of any kind, and I know a lot of you do, you should sign up for my Present Like a Pro group on Facebook so that you can get ongoing speaking tips. Jenny, I first heard your name when I started asking questions about the 2020 International Assembly sponsored by Rotary International. A little background for everybody. This is where all of the incoming district governors, there are 535 of them essentially, and they all come into San Diego for this long week of training. And Jenny was one of the guest speakers, and I started to ask people, who was the best speaker at IA this year? And your name came up more than once, and I thought I got to see this video. So I watched it, and they were right. You're really good.
Thank you, thank you. That's good to hear, especially knowing what company I was among, so thank you.
I think two things resonated with folks. One is you have a very engaging speaking style, which our viewers are about to discover for themselves. But the second thing that was really notable to me is, although a lot of us fancy ourselves to be real honest communicators, I think a lot of times it's honest with a small h rather than a capital H. And one of the things I loved about your presentation is that you delivered with a capital H, honesty. Here is what I experienced in Rotary. Here's what I didn't necessarily care for about that honest experience. I'm telling, and I was able to make some adjustments in my Rotary life so that I am happier now. And I'm sharing my message with you so that you can make the same changes if you choose to. I mean, that sounded like the blueprint for the talk, yeah?
Yes, absolutely. It was all about, the title of the talk was actually Becoming Rotary Happy. So it was kind of observing what I wasn't so happy about and what was kind of putting a bad taste in my mouth, and then building something wonderful where everyone could have that feeling.
Sure. And in any organization as large as Rotary, 1.2 million Rotarians, 35,000 clubs. Every club is, what do they call that? It's unique and distinct. It has to run by guidelines, but it develops its own personality.
Absolutely.
It's no surprise that a lot of people are experiencing a less than club experience. The thing is, most people don't talk about it. They go along for the ride. You did the opposite, and you did some brave things. Set the stage for us. You joined Rotary about 6.5 years ago. You joined a club, and all Rotarians, when they join a club, they join that culture. And then something started to turn for you. Can you talk a bit about that for us?
Sure. So I think it had probably always existed, and maybe it escalated, and maybe I just noticed it more as I was more involved. I think it probably escalated. And when I joined Rotary, I loved it. I loved the connection with Rotarians in the community, with around my state, around the world. I loved that part of it. We were doing really great work, having a lot of fun. Some of my closest friends are Rotarians, really became part of my family. And then as I became more and more involved and more acquainted with how things work, right? Because there's the guidelines and then there's kind of how things work, which are two different things. And I started to notice these unwritten rules about who does what, and who's allowed to do what, who does what no matter what, so all of those types of things. And there was this turfiness, this kind of turf issue of this person's in charge of this and only this, and no one else can be in charge of that. And I think that's not unique. I think that probably happens in a lot of organizations, and certainly a lot of Rotary clubs, yeah, where we do the things we do because that's simply the way we've always done them. And then as I became more involved, I was starting to learn there was this kind of internal dialogue, and then there was this front-facing dialogue. And, it was very un-Rotarian-like, the things that I was experiencing. And I mentioned in the talk, I was getting pulled into email threads that I felt really uncomfortable with about other members. I, as a woman, started to feel uncomfortable based on some of the behaviors and some of the things that were being said. And so eventually it all kind of came to a head where several of us, men and women, definitely a lot of women, but men as well, who kind of walked out of the door. And that's kind of how that happens.
Okay, so we'll talk about the changes that you made and the net result of it all, and it's a happy ending, at least if you can call it an ending. It's a happy development.
Yeah,
Before we
happy
do that,
beginning.
I want to talk a bit more about this unseemly malaise, because it's so common in clubs, and part of it is just understanding what's really happening. There's a term that's very popular right now. It's called gaslighting. Maybe you're familiar with it. It means like something's happening in a situation or a group or an environment, and it causes you to doubt your sense of reality. Like, well, if this is happening here, this must be okay. That's a kind of gaslighting. Or I don't feel like I'm okay with what's happening, but everybody else is, and so now I'm okay with it. And it actually gets you to think that maybe something that you might not have normally gone for is okay.
Absolutely.
Um, you use the term unwritten rules, which, by the way, isn't necessarily pejorative. There's a lot of unwritten rules that everybody's totally okay with. But
Absolutely.
I think you were inferring that these unwritten rules were undesirable for you.
Yes.
I just want to remind everybody that you can think about it any way you want. You can think of it as traditions. You can think of it as mores, because all traditions aren't good. Just because we did something 100 years ago doesn't mean it's okay to do it now. For
Absolutely.
example, we speak a lot differently now about the genders than we did 100 years ago,
Hmm.
big time. So
Absolutely.
anybody that's, in a public setting talking about women the way they did 100 years ago, this is not going to fit.
Right.
And I think what happens is that a lot of people are slower to adjust than others to this new way. Another word that comes to mind is habits. Sometimes it's not even a tradition, it's just a habit.
Hmm.
And it gets really complicated in group settings because we not only have individual habits, but as you're indicating, there's a club habit.
Hmm.
And that's kind of the stuff that was rubbing you the wrong way, right?
Absolutely. Yes. And I think too, I don't think anyone joins Rotary with an intent for this to happen. Even those who are maybe more involved in it. And no club's perfect. Even the club that I'm in now, we've had to work through ripples and rough patches, and we've been able to do that because we're a resilient, high energy, Rotary happy kind of club. And I think because it's easy to look at the situation that led to me leaving that club and me and several others leaving that club, and to look at it if you're a Rotarian and think, well, my club isn't like that, so I don't really have to deal with that. Well, I don't think our club started out like that either.
Okay,
And
fair
I
enough.
think looking at some of those more sentinel type of things in clubs that might be fun or funny to those who've been in the club for a long time and have a lot of institutional knowledge, but might be a little disarming or not feel so welcoming to new people. So, the kind of jokes that maybe, if you were, talking with your husband or wife, you probably wouldn't think that was funny. Or with your son or daughter, probably wouldn't think that was too funny, but somehow in this group setting, everyone just kind of laughs about it.
Yeah.
I think I know a lot of clubs use fines, and sometimes they're a good joke. They're a fun joke in the clubs and get everybody kind of laughing. But I think sometimes we have to wonder: are those things really inclusive? And do they make everybody feel welcome and feel good about being there?
Yeah.
And just all of those little things. I'm certainly not ragging on traditions that work for clubs, but sometimes they don't. And I think we need to be willing to be honest with ourselves and be authentic with ourselves. When they don't work, let's move
Yeah.
on from them.
So a little background for people that are unfamiliar with Rotary. The only reason anybody joins a service organization like Rotary, Optimists, Kiwanis, um Knights of Columbus, right? There's a bunch of them, is to help people, right? So it's a very pure raison d'etre, as the French say, reason for existence. You only join a service club so that you can help people. You don't join it for drama. You don't join it for bad jokes. You don't join it for bad taste or to make anybody feel bad.
Right.
And yet those things happen. And that's why we're doing this call today, to talk about this and be real about it. Also, for those of you that don't know Rotary, sometimes people join clubs and then they leave the clubs. You could easily predict that. Jenny did something that most people don't do. She left her club and started a new club. And that was the big change for you that allowed you to stay in Rotary and be okay with it and be Rotary happy.
Absolutely.
Tell us about that sense of awareness, what you were thinking when it was time to desert ship. You may have even thought, I got to get out of Rotary altogether. But you didn't take that route. You thought Rotary still had something for you. Walk us through that. How did that feel?
Yes, so lots of people, you know, my husband and my family were all saying, gosh, you got to quit Rotary. This is not good for you, for the time that we were kind of in this tumultuous place. And it was really that mission and the service and the relationships that I had built, because so many people that I had connected with through Rotary in my club, in my district, otherwise, were amazing people. And I continue to call them my very closest of friends. So that was a tall order for me to walk away from Rotary as an entire organization, as an institution. And I wasn't alone in that. You know, I certainly didn't start a club on my own. There was a group of us, and this is my favorite part of the birth of our new club, was that exactly 1 week after we kind of walked out of our final meeting, we met, and we kind of joked that we felt like the Breakfast Club walking out of detention. And
Oh,
so
the
we
movie.
met, yeah, and we met in this coffee shop in our town, in this little back room of our town, and we just met during the time our club would normally have met, because we knew we would miss each other. We'd been having breakfast together for a long time. And so we just got together, and just a small group of us, and just talked, kind of supported each other, rehashed some things. And then we decided we'd just carry that on very informally, just because we knew we'd miss each other. And by that point, we'd formed such great friendships. And so then over the coming weeks, more and more people kind of just kept joining us. And by the end of the month, I think we had, 12 people meeting. And by the end of 2 months, we had 20 some meeting for coffee. And we started to plan these informal little service projects where we were going to show up somewhere and volunteer together. We were going to collect something for this or that organization that was doing a drive. And so we got to a point where we're like, well, we look like a Rotary Club. We sound like a Rotary Club. We certainly care like a Rotary Club. Maybe we should be a Rotary Club. And then after some healthy debates about what we would name our new Rotary Club, Caffeinated Care Bears was one that I was really rooting for, but apparently you have to have the word Rotary in it somewhere. So.
Oh, let it go, man. The name didn't work for everybody.
Yes, so I'm still rooting for it.
You're still trying to get that name in there.
I am. I just want to plug it as much as possible.
Right.
If that organization exists, please call me, because I want to join it. And so then we, chartered our club right at the change of the Rotary year. And about a month or month and a half later, we got our charter. We had this big party in a barn, and it was absolutely lovely. And we made a lot of very intentional decisions about how our new club would look. And it's important for me to say too, that as someone who looks at organizations as a system rather than just individuals involved in it, we really, and I in particular, I think really didn't want this to be about building a club that was absent a particular person or a particular group of people, because that's really small and narrow-minded to blame an entire organization's troubles on just one person or a group of people. That isn't productive to me. I can't learn from that. So instead, really looking at the system of that club and what wasn't working. What were all those things that led to that club culture where I felt like I didn't fit anymore?
Yeah.
And really building a club that would be absent those issues, so that we could be more inclusive, more open to anybody, where everybody has a place in our Rotary Club, and less focused on, let's just, kind of be petty with it. And instead, really, let's learn from this and let's build something great because of this.
I mean, to be fair, I'm guessing, I don't know anything about the club that you came from, but I'm guessing that the other club didn't actually plan to become petty or small or have a bunch of unwritten rules. This is just kind of how things evolve over time. I call it like a routine groove rut, right?
Yeah.
Because you start with a routine that seems okay, and then now you're in this groove. Everything's moving pretty good. It's on autopilot, but before you know it, times have changed or moved along or whatever, and now you're in this thing you can't even get out of, even if you want to. I think a bunch of clubs are in that situation, not just in Rotary, but in every organization.
Mhm.
I want to rewind and slow-mo a couple of things. Did the club know that you were leaving? Did you announce in advance?
Um, I mean, I think I probably talked with some leadership of the club about it. I definitely didn't walk in one day and say, I'm out of here. I just kind of quietly made that decision.
Yeah, good. When you talk to people, did they express an interest in keeping you? Was there an effort to, well, what is it that you're upset about, Jenny? Let's talk about it. Maybe we can fix it. Was there that kind of dialogue, or would they?
I think we were well past that, because when I left, I was a part of a large contingent of people who
Okay.
left.
So my next question,
Yeah.
when you said I'm leaving, was the conversation a bunch of us are thinking about leaving?
Um, I, I really can't remember
Okay.
that part of it, and I don't want to speak for anyone else. But I know there were a lot of us that left around the same time, and several people had left long before me for various reasons, and I certainly don't want to make assumptions about why they left. But I think that there was a contingent of us that not really, we weren't in cahoots or anything, but that left. It had just kind of reached a point where it wasn't acceptable for us anymore,
Yeah, I
and
get it.
left, and that kind of led to the breakdown of that other club.
I'm asking, of course, as a problem-solving model, because there are clubs who are losing people now, and they have a chance here to, like, calibrate their GPS and fix this if they can. My guess is a lot of clubs can't recalibrate in time to not have people leave. But my experience after over 20 years in Rotary is that the club is much more concerned if a bunch of people are unhappy than they are if one person is unhappy. And that's why I asked the question.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're not clear about whether we're going to start another club, but we know this one's not working. Few of us are going to take our exits now. It's happened over a period of time. Um, um, so the answer to the question is they didn't exactly try to fix things for you. At some point, you were past that
No,
Band-Aid stage.
no, there definitely was. The club leadership was really trying to address,
Oh,
um,
okay.
but was just unsuccessful. I
Okay.
think that it was kind of the issues were here and the capacity was here.
Yeah.
And so I think the leadership really made a dramatic effort. And it just it wasn't enough. And I say that with the folks who are the club leadership are a handful of men that I continue to adore as some of my they're like extended parts of my family at this point. So
Okay. Well, like you said, it's a small town.
yeah, there was a really diligent effort, and they are almost all of those people are now in our club. So
Okay, so that was my next question as we kind of slow-mo through this, because I want people to really understand the mechanics of how this works so that we can help others make good decisions, both in improving their existing club and starting a new club if that's what's meant to be.
absolutely.
Um, the old club, when you left, had how many members?
Oh, I'm not even sure. Probably less than 20.
Okay. And your new club now has how many members?
I think we're at like 83
Oh,
or something along those lines. I feel like we are always adding new people, and we live in a college town, and we regularly have college students who join our club. So we do have a little bit of transient membership, and I think we kind of like birth Rotarians for the world in a really wonderful way. So because we
Rotary midwife.
yeah. So people will like join our club and then they'll graduate and get some amazing job somewhere and then go there and hopefully join Rotary there. So
Fingers crossed. So how many people from the old club ultimately made the jump to the new club? Is there a number on that?
I guess I don't know the exact number, but I would say the majority of them, either they chartered with us or they joined shortly after. And then since then, people I didn't even know were part of Rotary like years ago have joined our club and then said, oh, I was in Rotary, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And yeah, so a lot of people have circled back into Rotary and have used our club. And we also have another Rotary club in our town. And so, through those two clubs have found a Rotary home.
How many, just finishing up the numbers here, because when you know the numbers, everybody, you can understand what's happening, truly what's happening. How many members are in the old club now?
That club no longer exists, unfortunately.
That number then would be 0.
That would be 0.
Now, we are not happy that that club folded, correct?
I am not happy.
I'm not happy.
Yeah,
But
but
what happened was they lost some members. They lost critical mass. Maybe they lost hope. Apparently, they lost everything. And in your small town, this club that was holding its own and barely at 20, certainly not growing by leaps and bounds like the new club is, maybe became, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but did it become less relevant or less vital in these ways? And is that why the new value proposition was so much more attractive?
I think by the time our club chartered, I think that club had ended. And that charter had been dissolved. Obviously by that point I wasn't a part of it, but from talking with the district leadership that supported us in starting our new club, we knew that the old club's charter had been kind of, I don't know what the term is, but that charter, that they were no longer chartered.
The charter was in maybe not in good standing. It would have been possible to have 2 Rotary Club propositions, 2 value props in the same small town, right?
Yeah, and we actually have 2 now. We have a club that meets at noon and our club meets in the morning. Yeah.
Okay, I mean, I think it's possible to have 3 value props if they're unique and distinct enough. Each club has to do its own marketing and appeal to a certain segment of the population, otherwise you lose.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that most towns have room for lots of Rotary clubs and lots of service organizations.
Yeah.
We're all stronger when our colleagues in service are strong too. So
Yeah.
whether that's another Rotary club, whether that's a Lions club or a Kiwanis club, whatever it is, I think that we all can support each other and cheer for each other.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
really makes our community better. So no one should be, frowning on that when we're all coming together to make our community better.
No, but I think at the same time we also need to encourage clubs that do want to stay vital. They've got to take care of business. They got to recruit. They got to keep things upbeat. They got to stay positive. They have to have events. They have to do fundraising. They have to do membership drives. And a lot of our older clubs, that stuff kind of takes a back seat to just keeping the doors open.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, again, honest with a capital H, right?
Yeah, and I think too, when we talk about membership, because people ask all the time, how do you recruit members? How do you recruit young members? I'm a millennial, I'm a young professional. How do you recruit people like me to Rotary? And my response, I've never really talked about some recruitment campaign or some membership in like drive necessarily, where we're doing like, kind of little activities to get more people in the door.
Yeah.
We're good at that, and we've historically been good at that.
Yeah.
I mean, we add new members across the Rotary, sphere every single year. Our issue is retaining members and keeping members engaged. So I really think engaged, happy Rotarians are our best recruitment tool, and we never really have to talk to them about recruitment. If they're really happy and really engaged and really fulfilled through the service opportunities that Rotary provides, then the recruitment kind of happens on its own
Yeah.
because they're out talking about it in the community. They're really Rotary happy. So, they're really rah, rah Rotary with everything they do. They're posting on their social channels or they're talking about it at work. And then people just kind of say, hey, I want to be a part of this.
Yeah,
And
100%. You
so,
know, if you go to the Rotary International website, there's all kinds of documents and video and strategies on how to get new members. Um, but I'm with you. I think if you're doing it right, you don't have to strategize how to get new members. It happens organically. It's part of the flow, that the club is so undeniably attractive that people are just drawn to it like moths to a flame, right?
absolutely.
But when we lose our way, then we have to get crafty and salesy and do these campaigns, which by the way can work, but it's
Right.
better to have that natural environment that's just naturally attractive.
Yeah, and I think, the tools, I mean, because we're fortunate, Rotary has just an amazing array of tools and resources at any club's disposal. And so many clubs don't know that they exist. I'm the district membership chair. And so I'm always talking to clubs like, do you know that this exists on the Learning Center? Do you know there's this resource? And they just didn't know it was there and weren't sure how to find it, or thought maybe that wasn't something for clubs, it was something for districts. So I think those tools have a lot of value, particularly in improving that onboarding kind of experience that members have when they first get acquainted with a club. So I think a lot of those things have the tool, but I think absolutely nothing replaces engaged, happy members as our best recruiters.
Maybe
And
it's both. We've kind of been talking like the things are mutually exclusive. Maybe it's following these successful recipes
absolutely.
and having this organic kind of pull. Maybe that's kismet. That's the best scenario of all. I'm sorry that you lost that club in your town. Maybe it was inevitable. You got off easy. I've interviewed and talked to Rotarians all over the world who have started new clubs and paid a price socially. Eric Kamani in Africa said that when he left his club, also disenchanted with their old ways and started a new club, that members of the old Rotary Club stopped talking to him. These are Rotarians, everybody. Good people.
I'm sorry to hear that.
I
I'm sorry to
know.
hear stories like that.
I know. Me too. It makes me nauseous, actually. But not talking about it doesn't fix the problem. We have to, Stephen Covey said, sunlight is a terrific disinfectant. So by maybe you having the courage to do that talk at International Assembly or be my guest today, we can help more people understand their situation better and know that they have options.
Absolutely. I hope so. I hope so. That's really the purpose of me. When I accepted the offer to go and speak at IA, that was a tall order. That was specifically what they asked me to talk about, and really wanting to tell that story in a bold but authentic way, in a way that I wasn't sharing someone else's story. Really keeping it to my experience and how I reflect on that experience, and seeing the value of what came of it, which is now this beautiful Rotary experience that I have with this lovable 80 strong group of complete goofballs who I adore and respect immensely. So, while it was a little bit of a rocky road there for a while, it's been a magical experience since then. I look forward to every meeting, every project that I'm a part of, and Rotary has a way of being a part of your entire life. When you're really in it, when you're really Rotary happy, so much of what you do will randomly in our town, just as a quick side story, in our town, we're really saturated and have a lot of nonprofit organizations, which is wonderful because it means that we have a community that likes to help. And so there's always an event to attend or a project to get involved in. And so we'll show up and we don't plan to necessarily go as a club and support this event, but I'll look around and I'm like, there's a Rotarian, either from our club or another area club. So we always end up trying to get in for these group photos where we're like, man, wow, Rotary is really everywhere. Rotarians care a whole lot. And that's a pretty amazing thing to be a part of. So.
Well, I think you struck the perfect tone between candor and maybe shining light on a problem. And I hope that we've done the same thing today for people who are maybe experiencing the same thing in their part of the Rotary world. So thank you, Jenny. There are a few ways that people can continue to have these good vibrations coming from you wash over them. One way is through your club website, which is athenssunrise.org.
AthensSunriseRotary.org.
Thank you. And what state are you in?
We're in Ohio.
Yeah, okay, because there's another Athens in Georgia.
Yep. Yep, we're from Ohio, from the foothills of Ohio.
Okay, very good. And you also, I wanted to give a plug for your company because you do hero work during the day at Athens CASA, C-A-S-A. This
Yes.
is to look after and benefit children in foster care, essentially.
Yes, absolutely, yes.
So that's athenscasa.org, everybody. And then Jenny does a limited amount of speaking engagements. If you're interested in talking with her about that, she's got a website. Is it jennystotts.com?
It is. It's super easy to remember.
You didn't have any trouble getting that URL?
Hopefully I won't forget it.
You didn't have any trouble getting that URL?
No, I mean, maybe, yeah, believe it or not. So I was worried I'd have to be like Jenny Stotts 1 or something, but.
Well, listen, I'm so glad to connect with you. Thank you for all the lessons in becoming Rotary happy, and best of luck with the new club. If there's anything I can do for you in the future, you let me know, okay?
Absolutely. Stay Rotary happy.
Thanks, everybody.